Hey y'all, it's Kim. So this is just the Al Jazeera, whatever you feel about them, I don't know. This is just an article, but it's basically just saying Epstein files whose names and photos are in the latest document drop. Says the latest trove of legal documents has been heavily redacted, but several famous figures are recognizable. If you watch the last couple of videos, 7 and 8, of the document dump, pretty much you're going to see Bill Clinton, Chris Tucker, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross. And then I got to thinking about the picture with Michael Jackson and Diana Ross, and I don't know if it was a wax figure because there was some other wax figures in there. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's not true, but because in this article it actually shows that same photo that I have on one of the other videos. But I'm just letting you know, I don't know much about the Al Jazeera, but it's just it's just putting the information out there and you can think whatever you want for yourself. So anyway, this is pretty much the redacted masseuses list. I went through that document and there's nothing in there. It's all just blacked out completely. It's like 5, 6 pages or more. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then whatever this page is here. So yeah, there was nothing in there, no list. It says many of the documents in the latest release of the U.S. government case files into Jeffrey Epstein have been heavily redacted. Yep. So it says United States Department of Justice, or DOJ, has released thousands more documents relating to the prosecution of the late sex offender and financier Jeffrey Epstein, including photographs of prominent figures he spent time with. Just because he spent time with them doesn't necessarily mean they were involved with anything, but like they say, when you lay down with dogs, you could get some fleas. So just whatever. I don't know. Okay, but says but campaigners behind the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which compelled the Justice Department on Friday to release all files still sealed, say that far too much information in them has been redacted. Yes, I saw some redactions. There's even photos in the photo dump that I pulled up, like 5 or 6 videos of that, and some of them are redacted within that bunch or that grouping. So anyway, I was trying to do about 20 or 30 at a time, just so you could see. Anyway, so it says furthermore, according to U.S. media, at least 16 of the files, which they said were disclosed late, have since disappeared from the website where they were released. The deleted files included a photograph showing President Donald Trump. Now I'm telling y'all, I did support Trump. I'm just saying. So let's just lay it out there. But if he's involved, he should be prosecuted just like as well as anybody else. Bill Clinton, Chris Tucker, Kevin Spacey, Bill Gates, anybody else that was involved. Okay, we don't deal with perverts, and if that's what's happened, fine. But we're not getting the full story on a lot of this stuff anyway. So who knows? I mean, I don't trust our DOJ at this point. I sure as hell don't trust Pam Bondi after the way she did the damn influencers back in, like, I think February of 2025, where she brought them all in and basically gave them a binder full of crap. It was all redacted. So I'm not in a cult. I don't sit here and like listen to everything that Trump says, whatever. I don't have TDS, but I sure as hell am not going to be like, oh, I didn't vote for him and not admit it. So it is what it is. Take it for what it is. Anyway, so the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which Trump signed into law after it passed through Congress in November, require the government to release all remaining unclassified material in its possession relating to Epstein's and his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. I guess that's how you say it, Ghislaine Maxwell. Sex trafficking cases. Maxwell is currently serving 20 years in prison for her part in the scandal. Despite heavy redaction of many of the documents, which has angered Democrats and some Republicans alike, there is some new information about the powerful people who associated with the disgraced late financier. The Justice Department said it will release more documents in the coming week. And here's what we know about what's been released so far. Okay, it says A painting of U.S. or former U.S. President Bill Clinton wearing a dress is displayed inside the Manhattan home of Jeffrey Epstein. In this image from his estate, released by the U.S. Justice Department on December 19th, 2025. So, yes, I just did a video. I think it was number 7, and that photo is in there as soon as you walk into his office. So, there's this photo, and then over here to what would be my right, you would actually have a desk with like 4 or 6 computer screens, probably for his financial stuff, whatever, while he's watching the stock market. Anyway, okay, it says what's new in this tranche of Epstein files. This is just the latest release of documents relating to the prosecution of Epstein, who died by suicide in a New York jail in 2019. Suicided. You were Epstein. Anyway, just saying. The first tranche of about 950 pages of court documents was made public in early 2024. And I have videos on some of that too. I mean, if you go through the Epstein files, there's so many documents, like court case stuff, depositions from victims. Anyway, it says one document released this time around confirms that the Federal Bureau of Investigation was tipped off about the convicted sex offender's crimes nearly a decade before he was first arrested. First arrested, yes. In September 1996, Epstein survivor Maria Farmer complained to the FBI that the late financier was involved in child sex abuse. Farmer said officials failed to take steps to investigate, and if they had, she and other victims wouldn't, or at least the other victims wouldn't have been, trafficked and harmed. We'll just say that. Okay, so while the name of the complainant is redacted in the document relating to this complaint to the FBI, Farmer has confirmed it was made by her. Now in her 50s, Farmer said in a statement via her lawyers after the release on Friday that she feels redeemed and that this was one of the best days of my life. I want everyone to know that I am shedding tears of joy for myself, but also tears of sorrow for all the other victims that the FBI failed, she said. And this is over many decades, actually. That's like 30 years, really. If she complained in 96, yeah, that's 30 years pretty much that the FBI has failed. So how many administrations has that been? At least 5, maybe? I mean, 30, yeah, if they get basically 8 years apiece. So maybe a little bit more than that, 6. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just doing rough calculations in my head. It doesn't matter. So, newly released transcripts of grand jury proceedings also include testimony from FBI agents who describe interviews that they conducted with girls and young women describing their experiences of being paid to perform sex acts for Epstein. The youngest interviewee was 14, according to local media. One woman, then aged 21, told a grand jury that Epstein had hired her when she was 16 to perform a sexual massage and that he had gone on to recruit other girls, or she had gone on to recruit other girls to do the same. I think her name was Courtney Wild, maybe. I mean, all of this stuff has pretty much been made public either through documentaries, exposés, articles. I mean, these people's names have been spread out there. It's not like they weren't involved in some of this stuff. But anyway, so for every girl that I brought to the table, he would give me $200, she said. They were mostly people she knew from high school. I think it was Royal Palm Beach High School or something like that in Florida. Okay, and then from high school, she said, adding that she told them that if they were underage, just lie about it and tell him that they were 18. What? What? Much of the material published had already been circulating in the public domain after years of court action and investigation. However, many of the new photos, some of them heavily blacked out, feature well-known public figures. So this one was in one of the other videos I did. I don't know who this guy is. I've seen him on several photos. There's Ghislaine with Mick Jagger and Bill Clinton, and then I don't know who that lady is. It doesn't look like Hillary to me. Hillary Clinton, but anyway, from second from left, Ghislaine Maxwell, Rolling Stones frontman Mick Jagger, and former U.S. President Bill Clinton are seen in this image, part of the latest trove of documents from U.S. government investigations into Epstein. Okay, so who features in the newly released photos? Among the documents released on Friday are photographs in a folder labeled DOJ disclosures. Most of the photographs were seized by the FBI during various searches of Epstein's homes in New York City and the U.S. Virgin Islands. New photos show the musicians Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, and Diana Ross in photographs with Epstein and at times with other people whose faces have been blacked out. In one image, Jagger can be seen sitting between Epstein and former U.S. President Bill Clinton. Pop star Jackson is also pictured standing next to Clinton and posing for a photo with Epstein in front of a painting in another. Okay, so I guess this is an actual photo. Like I said, there were some wax figures from something in another photo, and I was like, well, maybe that's what that is. But I know over the years, Diana Ross and Michael Jackson were actually friends. So anyway, I think they were in that movie, The Wiz. Like it's kind of like a spinoff of The Wizard of Oz. But anyway, okay. So from left, Michael Jackson, Bill Clinton, and Diana Ross are seen in this image released by the Department of Justice. So, okay. Other famous men featured in the newly released photos include actor Kevin Spacey, comedian Chris Tucker from Friday and Rush Hour, billionaire Richard Branson. He was the Virgin Airlines CEO. I don't know if he's still there. Anyway, I don't care. Okay, the former United Kingdom ambassador to the U.S., Peter Mandelson. I don't know how you say that. And Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly known as UK's Prince Andrew. Dang, he got demoted. They stripped his name and everything. Okay, and his former wife, Sarah Ferguson. In one black and white image, Andrew could be seen lying across the laps of 5 people whose faces have all been blacked out, while Maxwell stands behind them. The Justice Department did not include any details about the contents or the context of the photos. They're probably all adults, but they're just trying to make it like more scandalous. Okay. Ghislaine Maxwell and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor are seen in this image released by the Department of Justice. Virginia Giuffre, who was one of Epstein's most prominent accusers and who died by suicide in April, aged 41, accused Mountbatten Windsor of sexual abuse when she was 17. He settled a lawsuit with her in 2022, but continued to deny the allegation. Another prominent figure among the photos is Clinton, Bill Clinton, if you don't know, okay. One photo shows him in a swimming pool with Maxwell and another person whose face has been blacked out. Another photo shows the former U.S. president in a hot tub with a woman whose face is also redacted. And I think they do that to make it a little bit more scandalous. Okay, Clinton swims in a pool with Maxwell in this image released by the Department of Justice. While Clinton has never been accused, of any wrongdoing in connection with Epstein's crimes, his spokesperson said the White House was using him as a scapegoat. Boy, you know what you did. All them cases against you, please. All those women, Paula Jones, some other Stephanie something that came after him. This man is tripping. Monica Lewinsky doing stuff in the White House. Come on now. Everybody knows you can't keep it in the pants. Please. Okay. It says this is about shielding themselves from what comes next or from what they'll try and hide forever. So they can release as many grainy 20-plus-year-old photos as they want, but this isn't about Bill Clinton. Never has, never will be, the spokesperson said in a statement. Clinton in the past has said he cut ties with Epstein before the late financier pleaded guilty to solicitation of a minor in Florida. What? Oh, okay. Epstein pleaded guilty. Okay. Yeah. So there's Clinton, and then Kevin Spacey's right here, and then there's Ghislaine, and I don't know these other 3 guys. Okay, from right, Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey can be seen in this image from Epstein's estate released by the Department of Justice. Okay, so does Trump appear in the Epstein files? Trump hardly appears in the files at all. The few photos that do feature him are ones that have been circulating in the public domain for decades. According to one court document released on Friday, Epstein was alleged to have taken a 14-year-old girl to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida and to have introduced her to the president. While introducing her, Epstein elbowed Trump, asking him, referring to the teenager, "This is a good one, right?" Trump smiled and nodded in agreement, said the document from a case against Epstein's estate in Maxwell in 2020. In the court filing, the unnamed plaintiff herself makes no specific accusation against Trump. And, there's nothing there in that instance. Just saying, I'm not defending Trump at all. If he's guilty of something, all the heads need to roll. That's all I'm saying. In response to media requests for comment about this court document, White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson said the Trump administration was the most transparent in history, and that by recently calling for further investigations into Epstein's Democrat friends, the Trump administration has done more for the victims than Democrats ever had. So there's a bunch of photos there on this table. I think that's the Pope, maybe. It's kind of hard to see. It says a photo originally labeled File 468, which includes a photo or a picture of Trump, has been removed from the Justice Department's Epstein Files website. I mean, we know they knew each other. Just because somebody knows somebody doesn't mean they're involved, but I'm not excusing anybody, so don't get all mad at me. Have some of the files disappeared since they were published on Friday? Apparently, yes. One image, originally labeled File 468, which showed the inside of a desk drawer, included a photo of Trump alongside Epstein, U.S. First Lady Melania Trump, and Maxwell. We know those photos have been out there, so, they're on the internet. Other missing photos were images of paintings depicting nude women, and one showing photographs on a cupboard and in drawers. On Saturday, the Associated Press news agency reported that at least 16 files published on Friday had disappeared from the Justice Department's webpage. The department has not provided any explanation or statement to the public about this, but said in an post on X that photos and other materials will continue being reviewed and redacted consistent with the law in an abundance of caution as we receive additional information. Democrats on the Oversight Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives also released 68 photos drawn from the 95,000 photos and files the Oversight Committee has so far received from the Epstein estate. Democrats in the committee said the images, which they released on Thursday, were selected to provide the public with transparency into a representative sample of the photos and to provide insights into Epstein's network and his extremely disturbing activities. Following the Justice Department's release on Friday, the committee's Democratic members questioned in a post on X, why the image featuring a photo of Trump, a Republican, was missing, stating, "What else is being covered up? And we need transparency for the American people." Okay, so there's Epstein with 3 women, just saying. Okay, Epstein appears with several women whose identities have been obscured in this image released by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee on December 18th, 2025. And why has so much been redacted? Among the thousands of documents published on Friday, at least 550 pages were reportedly fully redacted. One 119-page document labeled Grand Jury NY is completely redacted, as is a set of 3 consecutive documents totaling 255 pages. Each page is fully blacked out. Campaigners behind the Epstein Files Transparency Act said they had hoped to obtain more information about how the sex offender had been able to avoid serious federal charges for so many years. However, many crucial FBI interviews with Epstein's accusers, internal justice document memos on charging decisions are unreadable. Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, sent a 6-page letter to members of Congress laying out the redaction process, noting that the law mandates that the department omit or redact any references to victims in files that could jeopardize pending investigations or litigation. Blanche explained that he had therefore instructed lawyers to redact or withhold material that contained personally identifiable information about victims, depicted or contained child sexual abuse materials, and would jeopardize an active investigation or prosecution, or contain classified national defense or foreign policy information. Without specifying which, Blanche added that in some instances the department had withheld or redacted information covered by deliberative process privilege, work product privilege, and attorney-client privilege. Okay, so here's Bill Clinton with some young woman on his lap. Bill Clinton and a woman are seen in this image from Epstein estate released by the Department of Justice. When will the remaining files be released? The Justice Department has said the publication of thousands more documents concerning investigations into Epstein will be released in the coming days as the year-end holidays approach. The department missed its original Friday deadline to release all the information it had on Epstein, in violation of the law signed by Trump in November, ordering a complete release within 30 days. After the drop on Friday, the department published 2 much smaller tranches on Saturday, which went beyond the initial redactions and featured identities of prosecutors, FBI case agents, and other law enforcement personnel who appeared before 2 federal grand juries in New York State. Several U.S. lawmakers expressed anger about the White House's failure to produce all the documents required under the law within the time limit. Representatives Ro Khanna, a Democrat, and Thomas Massie, a Republican, the duo who introduced a petition that eventually led to the passing of the Epstein Transparency Act, strongly criticized the partial release on social media. Massie wrote that it grossly fails to comply with both the spirit and the letter of the law. Khanna called the release so far disappointing and added, "We're going to push for the actual documents." Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer accused the Trump administration of being hell-bent on hiding the truth and reiterated that the failure to release all the Epstein documents by Friday's deadline amounts to breaking the law. Meanwhile, officials from the Trump administration have been publicizing the photographs featuring former Democratic President Clinton and hailing the current government as the most transparent in history. Can campaigners take further steps to obtain more documents? In a statement, Schumer said Senate Democrats are working closely with attorneys for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and with outside legal experts to assess what documents are being withheld and what is being covered up by U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. She needs to probably step down, just saying. Representatives Robert Garcia and Jamie Raskin, the ranking Democrats on the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees, say they are examining all legal options after the Department of Justice is now making clear it intends to defy Congress itself. Donald Trump and the Department of Justice are now violating federal law as they continue covering up the facts and evidence about Jeffrey Epstein's decades-long billion-dollar international sex trafficking ring, Garcia and Raskin said in a statement. Senator Ron Wyden, another top Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee who investigated Epstein's financial ties, said on social media that the failure to release all the files was a continuation of the administration's cover-up on behalf of a bunch of pedophiles and sex traffickers. But let's stop. Who was president when the first case came out? Was it Clinton or was it the first Bush? He was like, when was this first case? Like, what are they talking about? Pedophiles? Seriously? And sex traffickers? Who was president in, what was it, 2006? We'll just say George W. Bush. So it was under probably his administration. Let me see. I'm just doing this on my phone. president in 2005. So that would still been Bush. Yeah, because Obama, yeah, Bush and then Obama. Yeah. So, and then when the original um, case with Maria Farmer came up, who was president? Bill Clinton. So it was his DOJ that didn't take care of all this stuff. And now, 30 years later, somebody's trying to do something about it and they're trying to blame the current administration when this has been going on for many, 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 many decades. Hello. All right. So anyway, the Associated Press reported that if Democratic lawmakers so choose, they could go to court to force the Justice Department to comply with the law. However, that would likely be a lengthy process. Separately, the House Oversight Committee has issued a subpoena for the Epstein files, which could give Congress another avenue to force the release of more information to the committee, but that would require Republicans to join them in contempt of Congress proceedings against the Republican administration. And I think this photo has actually been debunked. These are all men that were in like the what is that Hawaiian tropic or some kind of I don't know what you call that. It's not these are actually grown women. Anyway, this undated photo released by the U.S. House Oversight Committee from Epstein's estate shows Trump surrounded by 6 women whose identities have been concealed. I think it was Hawaiian Tropic. Where's my ex? Let me see. Oh, of course, I'd have to sign in. Stupid thing. Yeah, I don't want to sign in. Ah. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to sign in. Yeah, that's okay. Um, Let me go to Google. Is the photo, dang it, the photo of Trump been debunked? Because I saw it somewhere. Fact check Polaroids of Trump and Epstein with young women. DOJ pulls photo of Trump from release. Oh, let's see. The image of Trump may be fake, but it is not AI. Okay, can you tell whether this photo has been manipulated? Mm, let's see. What? I don't want that. That's stupid. Okay, let me look at the images. So this, according to this, has been debunked. These are adult women. I think there was something about the Hawaiian Tropic. I mean, Trump was involved with like the USA pageants and all that stuff, so he was around women. Yeah, I mean, so I'm just saying that, like, people want to go all crazy and say he's doing all this stuff. I don't know. Until we get more information and somebody's actually freaking in handcuffs, we're never gonna know. But anyway, I will talk to y'all later. Y'all have a good afternoon. See y'all. Bye.